Hi, welcome to Conscious Living and Wellness. And I'm really excited to have Jamie join us, and we're going to be chatting about lucid dreaming. So I hope everybody is well. So we're going to really be chatting about exploring your mind, also about consciousness. So it's really interesting with our dreams of what comes up, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, is about our dreams. Hi everyone, welcome. So I'm just waiting for Jamie to join us. So I know for me, when I have really kind of vivid dreams, I like to dream journal. So a lot of different kind of practices that I do. How is everyone? Comment below. Good to see you joining us. Oh, thank you. Such a good topic, lucid dreaming. If anyone wants to share any of their kind of dream practices that they have or they do. So for me, dream work has really played a really important part of my life and my practice for over a decade. Hey Jamie, how are you?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Good, good. So we've had a
Awesome.
few people already mention they're really excited and they really love this topic about lucid dreaming.
Yeah, so excited to get into it.
Yeah, so I think to begin with, do you want to share your story about how you discovered lucid dreaming, or a little bit about how it developed into a practice for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess for me personally, I've always been quite fascinated with the nature and possibilities of consciousness. And that kind of arose when I was in my teens, around 15, 16. And then when I found out about lucid dreaming, it was just a perfect alignment with that interest. You know what I mean? Just the idea that you can actually use your sleeping time to actually be conscious and aware and explore different facets of your being that you might not get access to in the waking state as easily, or even just have fun and fly across an ocean at 10,000 kilometers per hour. I was like, this is like a free simulation in my mind. So I began to explore it, read a lot about it, and had my first lucid dream after about 2 weeks of reading this book, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming by Stephen LeBerg.
Wow.
And that's a gem of a book, by the way, if anyone is interested. And yeah, after that first lucid dream, in 2 weeks in, which compared to my lucid dreams now was very basic, I was hooked. So yeah, that was about 8 years ago now, 8.5 years ago. And for the last 2 years, I've been running seminars and one-on-one coaching to basically teach people and to jumpstart their progress into learning how to become lucid, hopefully, or ideally at will, which is a level of mastery that personally I have yet to achieve.
And it's so interesting, and it always starts with the book. And I love that you shared that book afterwards. If you can like share it in the link, because a few people were saying they really love the vibe of it and the book. Yeah, similar to me. My first book, as I shared with you before when we were chatting, was the Tibetan Dream Yoga. So like growing up on the Sunshine Coast, I used to go to the Buddhist retreat, and yeah, that exact book.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a real good one.
Yeah, yeah, really, really good one to kind of, it really, I think, when you read more about it, it really gets you kind of, to question, like really explore your mind and, a little
Mm,
bit more about your consciousness as well. So for
absolutely.
those of you that are joining, that are new to don't understand what lucid dreaming is, do you want to kind of explain a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to, because there are some misconceptions around what that experience of consciousness is. But put in the most simple way, lucid dreaming is the experience that you know you're dreaming while you're in a dream. So the way I like to explain that is, a lot of people, when I tell them that, they go, oh yeah, I do that a lot. I have a lucid dream a lot. And then I dive a little bit deeper into what that experience means for them. And it turns out that sometimes it differentiates from a proper lucid dream. They might be experiencing what's called the pre-lucid state, which is when part of their awareness knows that they're dreaming, but it's not fully conscious. Their consciousness hasn't fully permeated the dream space. So they might be like, oh, maybe I'm dreaming right now. And they have a little bit more active control in the dream space. But, you know, there's a flickering awareness of I'm dreaming or I'm not dreaming. A proper lucid dream is when you're like, and you'll know, if people watching this have had a proper lucid dream, you just know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm dreaming right now. Like your conscious mind is 100% present in the dream space. And from that point, it's really up to you what you choose to explore from that point. But you'll know when you have that clear, crystal clear presence in the dream space and you're like, oh my God, I'm dreaming. It's like a really surreal, interesting state of awareness that I still haven't gotten tired of it. Like it's still just such an exciting feeling to have that come up after 8 years even. So that's the most simple way I can describing it. Knowing that you're dreaming while you're in a dream. Yeah.
In a dream, yeah. So drop a love heart if you've experienced lucid dreaming or any of kind of your experiences as well. So from that state, how would you say that's changed your life getting involved into like lucid dreaming?
Oh, there are so many benefits to lucid dreaming, but I think that the core benefit, which actually creates a bit of a domino effect on the others, is the presence that it gives you in the waking state as well. Because there's quite a crossover between waking reality and dreaming reality. And not a lot of people know this, but when you're learning how to lucid dream, cheers, Gail. Gail came to one of my seminars. You might be exaggerating.
Oh, changed my life.
Oh, did he? Yeah, no, he did. Yeah. But anyways, so when you're lucid dreaming, you're actually in quite a deep state of meditation. So while you're going about your lucid practice and your experience, your adventures, however you choose to use your time while lucid, you're actually present and conscious within the unconscious mind. So you're generating a state of stability from a very deep level of your psyche. And you're essentially playing into what many spiritual traditions call the observer mindset during meditation, where you're not attached to the self, you're merely an observer, and you're bouncing off that interplay between the deeper facets of your psyche. So lucid dreaming is essentially training you to remain consistently stable within that deep awareness, but in a very fun and interesting visual manner, right? So the more that you lucid dream, the more it gives, I guess, more lucidity and playfulness and ease to your waking reality, because you realize that waking reality is really also just a projection of mind and a reflection of self. Even though you're in the physical reality, it's still essentially dream, but just of a different vibratory nature. So you have less attachment to your external experience, and the phenomenon around that balance and that interplay between internal and external reality in the waking state is it's just more of a game, you know what I mean? Essentially, you give less fucks. Yeah.
And I love that, you know, it creates that ripple effect of being really kind of present, you know, within your day. And I love like seeing, you know, on your Mind Made Lucid, how you say, because this is something I always use, am I dreaming or am I awake?
Yeah, well, that's what we call a reality check. If anyone, drop a heart if you're familiar or you've heard reality check before. That's one of the most basic techniques to learn how to lucid dream. And it ties into really an extension of mindfulness training, which a lot of, or most of the techniques are, which is why I love teaching it, because just learning how to lucid dream, you're getting into a present state of mind. But the sentence, am I awake or am I dreaming, ties in with a consistent questioning that you should be doing throughout the day to learn how to lucid dream, where it sounds kind of weird, but what you're doing is taking a moment to just completely observe your environment and be like, am I awake or am I dreaming? And the more that you ask that question, the more likely it is that you're going to ask eventually the same question once you're actually dreaming. So you're basically training and triggering the conscious mind to be aware of your environment in the waking state, so that you ask the question. But that is also synchronized with learning what we call dream signs in the normal dreaming state or the lucid dream, which is consistent themes or reoccurrences or things that pop up. so that eventually when you see a 70-foot elephant walking across the beach, you're like, am I awake or am I dreaming? That's a little bit weird. And because your conscious mind is more tuned in at that point, it's going to be enough to go, there's a 70-foot elephant walking on it. This is not real. This doesn't make sense, right? But if you haven't trained that mindfulness, 90% of your dreams are whack. They're so bizarre, right? But you only realize that you're dreaming once you're out of it and you have that retrospect process of thinking around it. So it's basically training the conscious mind to do that while you're in a dream and have that additional mindfulness or presence to cue lucidity. And you can see that the crossover in that cognitive process with waking reality could be powerful and beneficial because you're just more aware, and it lessens the grasping and aversion you have to the external stimuli around you in the waking state as well, because you're more you're observing better essentially.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you recommend to reality check with as well?
Yeah, great question. So a reality check isn't just as simple as asking, am I awake or am I dreaming? It should begin ideally with essentially playing like the detective in your environment. So for example, I'm in my room right now, or we can all do a reality check right now. Let's do one together.
Yeah, let's do
Everyone
it.
that's watching. So I'll lead you through the steps. So take a moment to actually just observe your environment wherever you are. Look around the room and assess if anything seems out of the ordinary or weird. How normal is my environment? And how did I get here? Where am I? How did I get here? Once you feel confident that you're in that state of mind, then you want to ask the question, am I awake or am I dreaming? And you can either clearly confirm now, no, I think I'm definitely awake. You know what I mean? And it sounds weird. It's like, yeah, obviously I know that I'm not dreaming, right? But the thing is, you have to do that correctly. Otherwise, you'll be actually in a dream and you'll just be like, oh, okay, am I awake or am I dreaming? Time for a reality check. But you don't actually believe it. And so and many lucid dreamers have had reality checks in their earlier stages where they'll ask, am I awake or am I dreaming? But they don't break through to lucidity because they're so used to doing that in the waking state, and it just becomes a rhythm. So for that reason, you have to finish off the reality check with what's called a state check, which is like I might try and put my fingers through my hand and see if they go through, or I might try and float off the ground, something that breaks you out of the physical laws of reality as a final test, that if you did it in a dream at the end of a reality check, it would be enough for your mind to be like, oh my God, I'm definitely dreaming. So that's a full reality. And while it took a little bit to explain, it literally takes like a minute to do it properly in terms of that whole process. So you want to do like 10 of those a day, ideally, consistently, to cue the conscious mind. Yeah.
Yeah, so to really kind of go into that mindfulness, and like what you said, like that's a really good one for me as well. It's like the hands, when I kind of get into that lucid state, looking at my hands and going, okay, am I dreaming? Like you said, testing, because that is a really good, good sign of.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have a state check, or I just do a float check. I actually just try and like float off the ground because I'm really used to becoming lucid as one of my dream signs when I begin to fly. So that's a really powerful one for me because that really just breaks me out of like, no, I wouldn't be doing this if I were awake, right? So yeah, that's a reality check.
Yeah, no, that's really good, the reality check. And I think it's a really good check as well for mindfulness, just then is checking is like, where am I? What kind of, state I'm in as well. No, good. So I've been seeing, I like your little tip before you go to sleep is to actually, I've seen that you said to review what had happened during the day before you go to sleep.
Yeah, essentially like a visual dream journal. So it's a nice little practice to recall significant moments of the day in memory and actually imagine that it was a dream. Say, for example, you had a coworker that said a funny joke at lunchtime and you all had a laugh, or like, I don't know, something interesting happened in your environment, and you imagine that whole sequence was a dream, because there's not a whole bit of difference really between a memory and a dream. It's a similar just process that's arising, a complexity of experience in your inner reality that creates that phenomenon of a memory or a dream. So imagining that those consistent moments of your day, from the point that you woke up till you went to bed and now you're doing the practice, pick like 5 or 6 moments and imagine that they are dream. so that it's before you go to sleep, you're training your unconscious mind to essentially like an intention to be like, okay, I want to recognize that dream state, and it's familiarizing yourself with that dream environment. So that's one technique that you can do before going to bed, which is helpful. Yeah. Or similarly, visualizing the dream from the night before. And dream journaling is quite important with lucid dreaming. So if you dream journal that morning or even 2 nights before, basically just have a read over it and just visualize yourself becoming lucid in that dream from the night before, and walk yourself through it on a visual basis. And it's a really powerful way to cue your unconscious mind to become lucid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to try that because I do the dream journaling the day after, but I haven't done from the night before if I have a really kind of lucid or vivid dream. Yeah, rereading it and kind of imagining being in that dream state.
Yeah, for sure. It's also just a nice way to end the day. It's just, you treat it as a little meditation exercise, like a visual exercise, and yeah, it's like a dream journal, like a visual day journal almost, you know. Yeah.
And would you, for dream journaling, is there anything that you would recommend to like take notice of if anybody has anything come up for them in their dreams?
Yeah, so you want to write down in as much detail as you can the entirety of that dream sequence. And then at the end, you basically want to note any themes, anomalies, or reoccurrences. So 3 things. And each of those 3 things might cross over into the other a little bit. But the theme essentially is just like, where was I? Like, what was the context of my environment? Was I in 1940s New York? Was I in Sydney? Was I in my grandma's house? And then the anomaly is something that is outstanding or different or unusual. So, for example, I was at my grandma's house and she made me lunch, but she's passed away like 5 years ago, right? So that would be an anomaly. So you'd want to note that down. Had a dream about my grandma, she passed away 5 years ago. So that's a bit weird. And then the reoccurrences is anything that is like consistent and reoccurring. So you could have a theme, 1940s New York, that continues to resurface, or visiting my grandma who passed away 5 years ago. That's reoccurring. So you want to note down any reoccurrences so that they're used as dream signs. So why you're noting those things in terms of the reoccurrences or the anomalies is that you're training your mind to familiarize itself with that process, so that eventually, matched with the reality checks that you're doing every day habitually, it'll be enough that when you have a dream about your grandma or a theme that is weird, you'll be like, hey, that's okay, this is maybe a dream. Could I be dreaming right now? And something will be a little bit more present and mindful. It'll be enough to spark eventually lucidity. Yeah.
Wow. Oh yeah. And with those signs, would you read so much into it, or would you kind of just do what you said, is like do the check and like review into it?
In terms of a reality check?
Like, you know how you, like, for example, so having the dream and then you were like, okay, I was was it the 1920s or the 1940s?
1940s New York, whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 1940s, yeah. So you were in the 1940s. Would you kind of like look into, was there, something in the 1940s, and if you were maybe at like a party or something was going on in the 1940s?
Of course, yeah. So as the part of the dream journal, you're just noting out all the details of the dream. So yeah, you were at a party in 1940s New York. You were walking down the street and you noticed, horse and carriage, whatever it is. Like, basically note down the whole dream process, and then at the end in reflection go, that was an interesting theme. So you're just mental mapping the themes, the anomalies, or the reoccurrences, just to develop and build those dream signs so that you're familiar with them. You're just training the conscious mind to be mindful and familiar with any consistent processes that will eventually, like, this is unusual, this is weird, or this is reoccurring and consistent. Next time this happens, I'll realize I'm dreaming. It's just mindfulness training. Yeah. Yeah.
So in the process of, for example, reoccurring dreams, what you brought up, is there anything that you recommend if somebody's having a reoccurring dream?
Yeah, when I have clients that have consistent reoccurring dreams, I tend to tell them that they're in luck. It's fortunate if you have that, because it's a really powerful dream sign. And that could be the primary thing that your mind can focus on regarding, like, oh, like, yeah, like I said, keep having a dream about my grandma who's passed away. the next time that happens, I'll realize I'm dreaming. You just keep cueing that and cueing that and cueing that, and visualizing yourself becoming lucid in that particular theme. And it's powerful. Eventually it'll work. Like, I have clients that have, like, literally might have the same dream twice or at least once every week. And eventually they're just telling themselves, okay, that's going to happen. Like, you become so certain and confident that the next time it happens, you'll be lucid, because you've just told yourself over and over and written it down, I will be lucid, I will be lucid. It's essentially like affirmation. And affirmation isn't some mumbo jumbo thing. It's a direct interplay between the conscious and unconscious mind. So when I set an intention or a visualization, or I affirm that this thing will happen, I will do this, what I'm doing, like, I will become lucid in this next recurring dream, I'm basically sending a clear intent to my unconscious mind, which will capture that code or that frequency and be like, okay, Jamie's ego desires this. I will start to filter through more thoughts that align with that reality, and you'll find yourself thinking about it more. It'll rise to the surface of your conscious mind more consistently, and your unconscious mind is there to serve you and assist you as, like, just a motherboard of data. And when you send it more intentions, it'll reflect that back into your waking or dream reality. So that's why the visualizations and the affirmations around next time this blah 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 happens, I will be lucid, is powerful. And not only for dreaming, but also in manifestation and, you know, all those other things that we use affirmations for. So yeah, affirmations, that kind of thing, or setting an intent or a goal is definitely a part of learning how to lucid dream as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so with setting, so for example, you've had the reoccurring dream and then you become lucid and you've set that intention or that affirmation. This is your chance to really kind of bring it to life. Yeah.
In terms of, are you saying, like, once you're lucid in a dream, bringing an intention or an affirmation to life, or are you talking about manifesting in the dream space almost, or?
Dream space, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, because, well, the manifestation rate in the dream space is way quicker than waking reality. You know, if you think something, it's there. The expectation and belief process into creation is virtually instantaneous in the dream space. You know what I mean? And you are, in my opinion, functioning at a higher state of consciousness, where your being is amplified. So I believe when you're in that heightened emotional state, if you're familiar with the electromagnetic frequency around the heart and whatnot, that's what leading science is teaching us, is the process that actually is responsible for manifestation. So when you're in a powerful emotional state of being, you're amplifying a frequency, literally a thought energy that's moving along the ether that will attract the situation that you desire. And when you're in a lucid dream, because you're in a heightened state of consciousness, that electromagnetic field is amplified, because you're really at the core, more of the core of your being. So I actually, in my experience, it's quickened my manifestation rate in the physical as well, because they say if you're holding on to a specific manifestation in a deeper state of meditation, it amplifies the process, because the frequency that you're emitting is more clear. The focus is much more clear and precise, and that's what's required for manifestation. Not only on an unconscious level of attracting those thoughts that are necessary to create action, but also on a quantum level through the frequency that you're emitting. So it goes hand in hand with psychology, and I hate to loosely throw the word quantum out there, but, you know, that interplay. Yeah. So yeah, even like meditating in a lucid dream is insane. Like, you just get there so quick, and you might just enter a state of stillness really easily that doesn't have much visual, or sometimes, well, usually when you enter that state of stillness in meditating in a lucid dream, it will reflect that on a visual basis in your lucid environment, and you might get really interesting, like, beautiful geometric light shows, or beautiful music might start to play in the dream. Really, the dreaming mind, it really reflects your waking state. So anything that you're feeling will be reflected in the dreaming state. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really important what you said. It is really a reflection of your inner state and what's going on. And how do you really use lucid dreaming to explore your mind? I know you mentioned it can be fun, because a lot of people think, like, lucid dreaming, they kind of get a little bit scared, thinking like, oh, you know, like, whereas
yeah, sleep paralysis forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I know.
What was
So
your question exactly, just so I'm clear?
yeah. So I was, saying that, like, with that manifestation and creating a bit of fun with lucid dreaming, what would you kind of recommend for someone that's kind of new to lucid dreaming and that wants to like give it a try?
Just for the fun aspect of it and the
Yeah.
enjoyment of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing and exploring the fun, hedonistic side of lucid dreaming. You know, psychologists recognize that the happiest people seem to be those that seek enjoyment and create it, you know, for themselves.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with just immersing yourself in that side of lucid dreaming before getting into the deeper psychological or spiritual stuff if you want. But simple things like going for a lucid dreaming flight is just like so much fun. Like you can fly above the earth and just hover above it, or and then fly out into space and imagine or conjure up a different world. And you know, as you're flying, that expectation and belief will create a planet. It'll just it'll appear in the distance, and then you can, like, I've had so much fun exploring other planets in the lucid dream just to see what my unconscious mind can create. Even
Mm.
talking to dream characters is really interesting because they have like sometimes a lot of insight, and a dream character might actually represent or be the embodiment of a specific part of your psyche or your being. Like you could literally have a dream character that is the embodiment of your anxious self or your wise self, your fearful self, or even be the embodiment of a recent situation, a problematic situation that's occurring in your waking state. And so you can, like, you're basically having a conversation with your unconscious mind, with like a portion of your being, and getting direct feedback. I've
Wow.
also had some dream characters that claim that they're a fellow lucid dreamer in my dream, which is kind of whack. Like one time I went for a really long lucid dream flight all around the northern beaches with this one dream character. And then we were floating, hovering above the earth, and he just like fell back down to earth. And so I was still lucid, so I flew down to meet him. By the time I got into him, he'd fallen through the ocean and was asleep in a couch on the bottom of the ocean. And for me, that was symbolic of, if this is really a fellow lucid dreamer that has somehow entered my dream space,
Mm.
they're deep under the ocean, means they're not lucid anymore. They've fallen into that deep state of sleep again. They're no longer conscious and aware. And out of his hand fell a piece of paper. And his first name was Robert, and I
Mm.
tried to read his last name, but I couldn't quite get it. And to this day, I'm like, wouldn't that have been freaking crazy if I got this dude's last name, added him on Facebook, was like, did you have a lucid dream last night? You know what I mean? So that's one of those things. It's like, just, that was a lot of fun and interesting, but like I can't ultimately prove that it was a fellow lucid dreamer. It's also a possibility that my unconscious mind created that just to mess around a little bit, or you know, but yeah, so there's even lucid dreaming sex is like fantastic, and I don't think that's anything that we should shy away from as a topic. That's like perfectly natural to want to explore as well. And I can say that it definitely matches waking reality, if not exceeding it in sometimes.
And I
Yeah.
think that it has been a lot more people been having, since this lockdown, since everything been going on, we've been more conscious of our dreams, and we've seen, a big trend, in dreaming. And also, what would you say about the trend of shifting?
Shifting in what way?
So obviously it's not really lucid dreaming, but it's kind of like shifting realities.
Mm, are we talking about like maybe like quantum jumping or that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was kind of that, like it's a big trend on TikTok that you see.
Yeah, I didn't look into that trend as much. Like I'm not too familiar with exactly what that was, but when I briefly captured a bit of it, it sounded a bit like quantum jumping to me, and I could be wrong, but what I know about that process is the theoretical idea, which quantum physics is suggesting, that matches with what mystics have been teaching for thousands of years, which is, although it's very difficult to consciously comprehend, the past,
Mm.
present, and future is all occurring in the infinite now. So basically, everything has already happened. There is a reality for any possible experience that you can imagine that has already occurred within the multiverse. So
Mm.
quantum jumping refers to the process of aligning with a particular frequency, and by that I mean a particular reality that you desire, and essentially being grateful in advance and calling it into your reality now. So you're not
Mm.
saying, I want this thing, because the universe just goes, cool, you want it, great, you don't have it. It's going, oh, I desire this particular reality. I call that frequency into my being, and so mote it be. Now it is. And it's basically like jumping a Newtonian law of like A, B, C, D, very linear to this physical reality, and going, it's all a circle. I can just cut straight through that, and there it is. I bring it into my reality. And all mystics say a similar thing, like your rate of manifestation determines your level of mastery over self and reality. So that's an indicator of where you are in your path or your journey, is how quickly your manifestations are arising in your reality, how aligned you feel with your synchronicities as well. But certainly quantum jumping is something that can be used in the lucid dreaming state. And because you're closer to not only your unconscious mind, but in my opinion, your higher self, which is what the West terms it as the hidden observer. Well, in my opinion, it's the higher self. You get more direct insights into potential realities that could be serving you, or that you could align with in regards to insights, or like ideas, inspirations, just like you might if you're meditating in the waking state and you have like a crystal clear idea that just resonates and you're like, yes, I need to start doing that. Those moments that can occur in a crystal clear like manner in a lucid dream. Even if you just ask the dream, like, what's something that I need to know right now? What's important for my growth? Yada, yada. Give me an answer to this question. The dream actually responds through dream characters or just the dream space itself. So you can use it. Bit of a tangent, but linked in some way.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, with that quantum, I find that with my dream work, it really allows me to be really creative.
Absolutely.
Really good for that creativity of like processing a lot of things, but also coming up with like creative ideas or concepts.
For sure.
As well.
Many famous people have used not only lucid dreaming, but normal dreaming for insights. Literally, Albert Einstein quotes a normal dream that he had that inspired his theory of relativity. It had something to do with cows. I can't remember the specifics of it. And there's many other people that have had similar experiences. And the beauty of lucid dreaming is that, well, in dreaming in general, you don't have to be lucid to be having these interesting experiences. The West doesn't place much emphasis on the power and importance of dreaming in general, because from a scientific perspective, you can't empirically measure the value of a dream. You can't find the unconscious mind, right? So the West kind of tends to dismiss it because we're all about that. Well, we can't just rely on anecdotal experience, which is a bit unfortunate to me because it cuts out a lot of valuable lessons that we could immerse ourselves in. But long story short, normal dreaming, even just familiarizing yourself with your consistent dreams, is developing a more intimate relationship with your holistic self and your unconscious mind. And not to say that every dream has deep symbolic value, but definitely, like I've said, the crossover between waking and dreaming is quite linked. And if you're in a restless or agitated state of mind in the waking state more consistently, your dream space is going to reflect that. And your dreams might be more random or scattered or stressful. But if you find that you're meditating more and you're in more of a present state of mind in the waking state, that will cross over in more presence in your dreams. And you might have dreams which you're familiar with, or other people watching are familiar with, where it's more of a story-like process rather than being a really random, scattered process of events. And the unconscious mind is actually leading you through something and you feel kind of guided by it. And that might occur when you're a bit more relaxed. So it's also just really valuable to focus on your normal dreams as well as your lucid dreams. And I hope to see that being more of a household name in the West as well as a psychological tool to our own insight. Yeah.
And I think that is a really good point, because dreams have been, like, through cultures for centuries, so sacred. And, we've
exactly.
we've kind of, not really pushed it to the forefront. Now I think there has been a really great interest in understanding our dreams and really using the dreams to be our most best potential selves and explore our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, maybe not every dream has some amazing deep symbolic value, but at least if we can tune into them a little bit more, you will find a gem every now and again, and you'll learn to see where your mind is resting. It'll be a visual symbolic guide or indication of where your mind is placed in the waking state, and that's when you can start to use it a little bit more to decide what your which thoughts you're choosing and where you're placing your energy. Yeah.
And I think that was a really good point what you'd mentioned before about with the dream state, is that when you're meditating more or when you're more present in your everyday life, it is a really good version of, you know, of your dream state. Yeah.
For sure. And what you find as well is people that meditate more not only tend to remember their dreams more, but they have more lucid dreams because they're more present. And dream yoga, which is this book, which we spoke about when we met, is dream yoga specifically as a practice goes a little bit deeper than normal lucid dreaming to create a lucid living relationship where dream yoga basically it cuts the attachment by, I guess, reorganizing the perception and understanding of objects and stimuli. So it basically trains you to go, well, when I'm in a waking state and I have certain emotional experiences that arise, like negative ones per se, like jealousy, anger, frustration, and I react to that. I feel it in my being, it comes, bubbles up, and then I just I respond to it. I'm reacting almost unconsciously to my environment. That process of that emotional experience is actually virtually no different to a dreamlike state. The only difference in the dream is that you're experiencing it on, you know, a visual basis. So the truth in this statement becomes clear when you basically you're paying attention to the inner processes that produce emotional states and seeing that process is just like dream. So the key there with dream yoga and meditation as well is to play the observer. And with dream yoga, for example, anytime you observe that emotional reaction building, you actually identify with that thought experience as dream. So you actually tell yourself, this emotion is just dream. I'm literally just conjuring it up and playing out this role in my mind, but it's not actually real. So not identifying with the thoughts, right? Not identifying with that aspect of self. And that's why it makes waking reality so much more loose and playful. And just relaxes you. So you basically want to identify the waking reality with just dream, if that makes sense. And the internal processes of your being as just dream. And then they lose their power. They lose their grip over you to create an unconscious reaction, which a lot of us are just literally sleepwalking through life, as they say, because we're not even aware that we're just bouncing and reacting off all these different thoughts. We're not in control in our presence, in our reality, because we're identifying with our thoughts and letting them lead us astray into suffering and attachment to all these external things. But there's really no external thing that inherently is creating a struggle for us. It's how we allow that experience to come into our reality, to process it, and then have an attachment to those emotional struggles that we identify with the external experience. But it's not real. It's just a dream fabrication in the mind, and it is a dream process. So the more that you can imagine and tell yourself this emotional reaction is dream, then you'll reach a very calm, peaceful state in your dreaming reality where you're just like the observer. And then that facilitates lucidity until you are lucid dreaming. And that is like the pinnacle state of just being the observer and being present in a deep state of mind, which is a meditation process. Yeah.
And I love how you explain that. And I think, you know, the big thing out of that is that we have choice either in dreams or in lucid dreaming of, you know, how we want to react or, you know, what kind of way we want to lead it. So tell us a little bit about what it means to be a lucid dream coach.
For me, recently, actually, I've kind of grown what that label, that identity means for me. And it's expanded beyond the realm of simple lucid dreaming into what I just explained, lucid living as well, I think is the highest benefit. So in terms of that crossover. So now when I have more one-on-one clients, I'm creating more of a holistic process around that with the identification of self in regards to waking and dreaming. And so with my seminars, I'm merely teaching people how to become lucid. And I've found all the techniques with the highest success rate and put them together in a structure that leads to having a lucid dream, you know, the quickest way possible. And that's interspersed with obviously really interesting dream theory as well to keep interest flowing. But I guess what it means to be a dream coach is I love to guide people into the highest version of themselves that they want to be within the dream state and lucidity. And what problems do you wish to overcome? And if you don't wish to overcome a problem in the lucid state, what experience do you wish to have? Because for me, even one lucid dream can just uplift your waking reality so much. So that's why I love identifying as a lucid dreaming coach. Just one lucid dream can like create 5 days of just like you just like clinging on to that beautiful emotional experience of the lucid dream, and it's called the lucid afterglow. So I love to give people experiences that arise from a deeper portion of their being, and to realize that their inner world is really something to explore, and there's so much to explore, and take back time in your day, you know, in your night, and use it to your advantage. So I guess if that loosely answers what it means for me to be a lucid dreaming coach, it's to help people be what they want to be through the exploration of their inner world.
So yeah, explain to me a little bit more. I really love this about how it's really kind of transcended into lucid living.
I guess it's been through the process of dream yoga, and just seeing in my experience how the more I've lucid dreamed over the years, I've really just waking reality becomes like a bit more of a game. And by that I mean you're not literally like confusing the difference between waking a dream and getting lost to it. If anything, it just creates more presence and awareness in the waking state. And so that's what I want to help people with, is that it's not just learning how to lucid dream and having a lot of fun with that. It's a very deep state of meditation that crosses over into the waking state and amplifies the presence in your normal waking reality. So I want to guide people to that holistic, that holistic process of being. And yeah, I just feel like, I become less nervous about walking into certain situations, whether that's a social environment or a job interview or an opportunity, because it's just like, who gives a shit? Like, nothing is actually real. It's all an illusion that I'm creating based of an inner emotional experiential reality that I'm attached to. So if I can master that process and just be the observer, literally nothing can get to you and nothing fucking matters. I start caring what people think about me. Cool, that's just an illusionary thought that I'm choosing to identify with. It has no inherent value. Like, let it go, set it down, and just be more loose. You know what I mean? Just flow a little bit more.
That dropped the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's having that, like that choice, and really exploring your mind and understanding, lucid living. Yeah, I love that explanation of it.
Thank you. Yeah. Take my money, DJ Bookie. So yeah, I guess if I had a question for you, Jesse, I'd be curious. What would you like if you could lucid dream basically as much as you want? What would you choose to do with that time, or what is a natural interest for you to explore of that realm of being?
Yeah, so for me, I find it is a really kind of sacred practice. It's more kind of ritualistic, and I actually really kind of tap into my dreams going around the moon phases. So yeah, that's like because I think it's really unique how people kind of use it. And for me, I always kind of do a dream journal either before it's going to be full moon or new moon, and see what kind of dreams come up, and really kind of work with it that way. So that's what I'm really.
So a bit of a cycle. Do you find that there are any reoccurring emotional experiences for you with a particular moon cycle in relation to your dreams?
Yeah, so I, definitely with coming to the new moon, it's definitely that manifestation side of it. Like what you said, kind of being really present with it, and kind of understanding what's going on and what I'm gonna, it's kind of like that future life projection of, what is it that, I want to call in. And I really loved what you were saying before, that, the more and more you become aware and come into that lucid state, the more you'll see that manifestation and those signs come up, it's that real present. And I've got a name for it now, Jamie. Thanks, lucid living.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, and Mind Made Lucid. That's why I called my business Mind Made Lucid, because it encompasses something much broader than just lucid dreaming. It's lucidity of self at the end of the day. And in regards to stepping into that presence of, you know, the manifestations and what you should be calling into your reality, like Carl Jung, for example, says that synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those that have the eyes to see. And I just love that sentence because it's always there. And once you open up your heart to it and you trust that process, life literally just becomes magic. Like at this point, I just kind of wake up each week and I'm like, whoa, what magic synchronicity is going to occur? And I'm just like excited for it. I don't even like care if it does or doesn't happen at this point. I'm just like a childlike expectation. And that's where the magic of lucid dreaming comes in. It's not like holding on to it really tight, like I gotta have a lucid dream this week or tomorrow or whatever. It's like just be excited and welcome that lucid dream in its own good time. And when it happens, you'll just be like ready for it. But like, for example, what you said with your cycles around dream journaling and whatnot, a perfect question that you could ask in regards to that cycle aligning with things that you're, you know, if there's any shadow work or insights that you're trying to work with at that time, the next time you're lucid, whatever that might be, you actually just here's a really amazing tip that not many lucid dreamers use. Ask that question or that statement to the actual dream space itself. So once you're lucid, you say like, I don't know, give me an example of something right now if you want to get a bit personal that that you're thinking about, or not, whatever.
So of my shadow self, I think you know, really kind of working through like limiting beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have an example of a specific limiting belief, or is that something you'd want to share? Or
So
not, whatever it is. Yeah.
I think a really big kind of thing is like, you know, even doing this, like putting myself out there, like a lot of people,
For sure.
you know, and they're like, oh, you're really confident in this. But like, you know, for me, like a kind of a bit of my background, I was in really the corporate world, and now me up this side of my, like, you know, consciousness and diving into these things I'm really passionate about, I kind of really
100%.
like, you know, it feels like this exposed so
Yeah.
you're,
And you have
yeah,
to own that identity. You know, it's
yeah.
putting the name on the brand and saying, no, I am this person. No, I am capable of this. Like, I understand that. Like, that was a struggle for me when I was doing a lucid dreaming course. I was like, can I do this? And then I was like, well, no, fuck yeah, I can. That's just hesitation that has no actual basis in reality. You know what I mean? And I'm similar to you right now. I'm quitting corporate. Like, you know, I found a new thing that's gonna be a more service-based role and give me a lot more time to focus on this kind of stuff. And that was a leap. And in terms of the manifestation thing we were talking about, when you make a bold statement that is outside your normal path and you step into a more vulnerable frequency that you're excited about, you open up this space for new creation, and that interplay of manifestation circles back to you. And I think when it's coming from the heart, it just makes reality a lot more interesting. And like, I've just noticed in the last 2-3 weeks, my life's just been fucking like so much fun and exciting because my frequency is different because I've stepped into this new place, right? But circling back to the limiting belief process, whatever, you know, specific context that might be for you around what you're wishing to create in alignment with your passions, you would just formulate a really simple, concise, clear statement or question, and the next time you're lucid, you ask it to the dream space itself, and you wait for a response. You just completely like surrender and trust and put that question out there. And it's really interesting what happens because the dream, there seems to be like a latent inherent awareness in the dream that has a lot of intelligence and intellectual capacity to respond with wisdom and guidance from like a caring place. And it might give you the answer that you need through a visual phenomena or symbolic interplay of sound or lights. Or the really interesting part of it is it's not like when you get an answer that resonates from what we call the hidden observer, which is the awareness in dream. It's not like reading words out of a book and going, oh, I intellectually understand this. Like the way that it gives you that lesson that you need, it basically transmutes it into just a feeling response, almost like a telepathic download of energetic data that you just bring into your being. You just absorb it and you're like, I get it. It's a feeling based response as opposed to an intellectual reading thing of like understanding. It's transcending thought into just a feeling based experience, which is where the creation process begins and the situation changes. So which also ties in with manifestation and whatnot in terms of that emotional experience. So that's one of the biggest keys, I think, when working with the hidden observer, is that the way that it transfers that data of experience to you is very direct on an experience-based level of being, rather than just like reading and understanding on an intellectual level. Do you know what I mean? There's a really key difference. Like anybody will tell you, philosophers will tell you that there's a key difference between understanding something, having the knowledge of something, and actually experiencing that knowledge, right? That's such a key difference. And people could go their whole lifetime understanding a concept, but never actually experiencing the concept. And all mystics or masters say there's that trifecta of knowing, experiencing, and being. And lucid dreaming helps transcend into that realm of being more, which is basically when the process, you will consistently have the experiences of the knowledge that start to build a little bit more. You start reading about that bliss state of meditation that you can achieve. And then 5 months into your meditation process, you have a 10-minute or 5-minute experience of that bliss. So now you've had the experience of what you've read, right? Until it gets to like a Jesus or Krishna or Babaji level where you're being that. You've actually embodied that knowledge on a consistent basis. So the experience just becomes you. That's the pinnacle state, right? And in that moment, when you receive the answer from the hidden observer in a lucid dream, in that moment, you are being that experience, which is like, cool. It's an unlock. It's similar to like how Neo's in the Matrix and he's like, I know Kung Fu. You know what I mean? He's just got that download. And it's a very similar kind of, process in a lucid dream. Yeah.
And how you mentioned, it is really that feeling, and it's really coming from like that heart space if you're looking to really kind of manifest and change. So we've got some asking as well. So when I try and become lucid in my dream, I just always wake up. Any advice on how to hold on to that moment and you not wake up? That's a really,
Yeah, thanks for that question. This is something that's a lucid process that is quite normal in your first few lucid dreams, and I have a couple really easy little tips and hacks that you can work with. Not sure what your name is, but that's all right. So what might cause that experience is you might become really excited when you're first lucid, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I've trained like a month or 2 weeks or whatever, and now I'm lucid. Like, holy shit. And that excitement actually can collapse the dream space because you're no longer present. You're actually lost to that emotional experience. You're identifying with the dreamlike nature of that emotional thought sequence, and you're like, I'm excited, blah, and then lucidity might drop. So one of the most helpful, simple things you can do in your first few lucid dreams to keep the stability is actually say to yourself, I am dreaming. I am dreaming. So feel the excitement and then repeat almost like a mantra to yourself, I am in a lucid dream. I am in a lucid dream. And you ground yourself through that sentence, and it'll help remind you that you're still lucid. So that's the first thing you should do. I am lucid dreaming. Remember that, hold on to that sentence, and then just observe your environment. There's no rush. You don't have to fly off or talk to the next dream character you see, but just be present in your lucidity. Observe your environment as you say, I'm dreaming, and really just take in that presence. And then the final step I would say is have a specific goal or a reason why you're becoming lucid or you want to become lucid. Because there is like basically you're in like an infinite simulation of imaginative possibility. So if you have one specific goal or experiment that you want to actualize, hold on to that and make it the thing that you do once you're stable in lucidity. So I want to talk to the nearest dream character. I want to attempt to dream fly. And what that does is it helps refine your focus down to a focal point so that you're not just lost in infinite potential of experience and you're just like, okay, cool. Now I have a thing to focus on and do while I'm lucid. And it helps to streamline your excitement in a way that creates more stability. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, is like saying kind of like an affirmation to really ground yourself in it and understand. Yeah, because otherwise
For sure.
it's very to snap out of it. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So the final thing is really, how do you think lucid dreaming is really affecting the collective consciousness?
Oh, how does it affect the collective consciousness? That's a big question.
Boom.
Hmm. Do you have a specific like? Do you have a specific way? Like, 'cause that's quite a like broad, vague kind of
Well,
question. Do you have?
I that I'm thinking of it on a collective consciousness level is the more and more people that kind of start to explore and even go a little bit more lucid is like that part of it is asking questions, and that part of it is
For
really
sure.
great.
Yeah, yeah. I feel you.
Yeah. Mm,
Um, I think that when people make the choice, or a society or a collective makes the choice to start focusing more on their inner reality without judgment and
mm,
playfully explore and be the observer, what kind of person are you going to be in the waking state more when you're with that? You're going to be less reactive. You know, you're going to
mm,
respond more rather than react, which
mm,
means you're going to be less quick to anger or frustration or jealousy. And even if you are going to be those things, you're going to be less quick to respond to them and create a negative future experience, right? So
mm,
like we began this discussion, I think lucid dreaming gives more presence. So the way that would contribute to the collective is people that come from less judgment of self, which
mm.
in turn transfers to less judgment of other, and less reaction, which I think would be a huge way of dealing not only with one-on-one relationships but with how nations treat each other. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Another way I would answer on a deeper, more spiritual level of how lucid dreaming would contribute to the collective is that when you're lucid dreaming, it makes it more easier to align with the spiritual concept of oneness,
Mm.
that everything is self, everything is a reflection of mind, because every dream character you have is really just a portion of your being. It's just the one awareness of you fractaled out into different forms. In the waking state, I would argue it's the exact same thing. The essence of self that makes Jesse beyond the personality constructs, the thing that allows
Mm.
you to just be aware, is the exact same inherent consciousness that's in me. So really, we're no separate from each other. We just have the illusion that we are because you're male. You're female. I'm male. You have this different personality constructs, and I'm like, oh, you're different. It's like, well, that's just an illusion. You're actually not. So consistent lucid dreaming also helps to identify with it's all mind. And the key with that is, how could if I recognize that it's just one consciousness, what's the point of hurting other? Because if I hurt other, I just hurt self, and it all comes back.
Mm.
And more advanced civilizations, that's the current state that they're in. They're like, there's no point to create survival through processes of competition, and I'm going to beat you, or else you're going to beat me, right? It's like, well, no, we're going to work together and create a reality that's way more fulfilling for everyone, through that notion of one consciousness, and it's all self. So in that way, I think it would greatly contribute, ideally, to the collective in regards to really just transcending the illusions of hate, division, and fear, which have been dividing us for like thousands and thousands of years. But that's quite a deep example of lucid dreaming, right? I mean, that's. But
Yeah, yeah.
if one person can actualize that perception of reality, and so it's not just a philosophical perception of oneness, but they're actually feeling that when they're interacting with other people and in relationships. um, I think we'd be living in a very like different world. Yeah.
No, and I think that's a really good explanation as well, because we think, oh, who is just us to change, but if we do the inner work and we start exploring our minds and ask questions and showing up as our most authentic self, yeah, it is that oneness, it is that kind of expansion in that collective consciousness and that understanding.
100%.
Yeah, we live in a world that's so busy and so many things happening. It's like, what a beautiful practice to just check in and be more grounded.
Mm, yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Yeah.
It is like I think was it what's his name, Dalai Lama, I think, that said, and I'm completely paraphrasing here, but he said if children learned how to meditate in the school system, you'd basically create world peace in like a few generations. And that's just because it helps you be more present and less reactive. um, And in regards to what I mentioned around that concept of oneness,
Mm.
like if there's any more scientific people watching this that might hear that as a bit more kind of mumbo jumbo, light and love, crystal chakra, yada yada, I'd invite you to look into a guy called John Hagelin, who's got a PhD in physics and consciousness from Harvard University, and he did his postdoctorate at CERN as well, which is really interesting. And he is a quantum physicist as well, who's crossing the gap between what mystics have been teaching about the nature of self for thousands of years, that at the basis of life's surface diversity, way beyond the subatomic level, is this waveform, essentially a unified waveform that's responsible for all the intelligence that creates reality in infinite different forms, and that it's actually conscious and self-aware. So he's arguing that the basis of reality is a unified waveform or pool of consciousness that is the same thought energy that is responsible for creating the possibility of consciousness within the individual. So it's literally just a pool of mind, of self, and there can be nothing that is outside of that. But we just get it's incredibly easy to get lost to the notion of separation and difference in the physical reality, because you look different, yada yada. But at the basis of self, it's all one awareness, one consciousness. I think that's like a really powerful, even scientific. Eventually, I think it's going to be more proven, although it's difficult to measure, that process. And that's, I think, ultimately what will help contribute to the collective. Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone, when you kind of mention like lucid dreaming, they always bring up like Inception.
Yeah. That's
Inception.
Yeah, inception of self, meta, go. Yeah, no, you can't get lost. You can't. It's very difficult to get lost in the lucid dream, because at any point you can just decide that you want to wake up. You know what I mean? But yeah, you can go a dream within a dream. You can experiment with that if you want. It tends to become a little bit more hazy. Like I know in the movies, it was just the same level of lucidity and it just got deeper. But it's basically, it's more of a mental construct. You know what I mean? It's not like you're going deeper into REM sleep or increasing your brainwave function. It's more, you're just creating a construct or an idea, an imaginative reality of, oh, one dream deeper, oh, one dream deeper. But if that actually has any inherent objective basis in a dream level, I'm not so sure. But you can just create it as an idea and explore it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm definitely taking away what you recommended. I'm gonna try that, with the journaling of the dream the night before, and then try working on that shadow self. I think that was a really good tip.
Yeah, awesome. Like, yeah, just formulate that statement or that question, whatever it is. Remember to make it quite clear and concise, because the hidden observer will literally reflect your wording, like word for word. So, for example, if I was like, what's it like to become an eagle once I'm lucid? I might see an eagle fly across the sky and get a really clear visual on what it looks like to fly and be an eagle, even though I might have had a different intention or desire based on that question of like, I want to become an eagle. Do you know what I mean? So if you want to become an eagle, say, I want to become an eagle. And then I've had the experience where my dream body has morphed into a bird, like an eagle, and my dream site changed. I could, like, I don't know, my unconscious mind seemed to do a pretty darn good job of what it would be like to have wings and feathers, and even feel my body like different. So the hidden observer will reflect your wording quite direct. So just be clear in the way that you're framing it to have the experience that you want.
Yeah, no, I love that. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us. Have you got any kind of events or workshops, anything coming up? Or they should just go on Mind Made Lucid to stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just hit me up, send me a message on this channel, Jamie Basner-Churches, and then we can have a discovery call, and I can get a bit of a better understanding around what you might want to get out of lucid dreaming, whether that's just having your first lucid dream, clearing up recurring nightmares, or working with any other problems. I also have a degree in psychology and counseling, so that does come into my coaching work as well. So I'd love to explore that with anyone who's interested in what I've said and wants to go a bit deeper into lucid dreaming. I'd love to have you on board. So feel free to shoot me a message and we can go from there.
Oh, thank you. No, I think, it's a subject that I'm really passionate about, and, it's amazing the way that you've explained it and really broken it down and answered some of the questions that people have around that, and giving some tips. So, really, just send a DM and
For sure.
yeah.
Thanks so much, Jesse. And if we ever do this again, I'd love to create a bit more time for like a question, questioning if anyone has any more questions, because I'm sure if one person's thinking it or feeling it, others are too, potentially.
Yeah.
So, but Jesse, thanks so much for having me. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And yeah.
Yeah, maybe now if anyone has any last minute
Yeah,
questions, or,
if we have a few minutes, sure. If anyone has a question, by all means, jump on.
yeah,
We
you
can wait.
yeah,
We
coming
can wait a
up.
minute. We'll see. Sometimes there's a bit of lag, but see how we go.
Yeah, no, that was a really good tip with the dreams.
Mm.
The kind of out there dreams, or is there things that even within yourself with the dreams that you're like, wow.
Like normal dreams as well,
Yeah,
or
like
lucid.
dreams, or
Yeah, that can be just spastic, just bizarre. Like, how does my unconscious mind conjure that shit up? Like, what is that? Like, how could I possibly bring out any symbolic value from that? Like, that was just like pull out, Yeah, sure. That still happens, you still, and as people, it's funny, people sometimes get really like almost self-conscious or insecure maybe about these bizarre dreams they're having. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, that was the weirdest, kinkiest shit. I don't even think I consciously feel that. Like, it's like, who cares, man? Just explore it. Be the observer. Don't identify with that experience. Just play it out. I do. I love going to sleep at night. It is an adventure, and I like honestly, it's like I look forward to just seeing what the week of lucid dreaming holds. Yeah, like I want others to experience that. I really do. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. They probably would have come in by now,
yeah,
but yeah,
they can DM you, and you'll drop the link as well in this chat. And yeah, everyone have a good night and have really sweet dreams.
sure. Sweet dreams, fellas. Jesse, much love. Thanks so much for having me on, and it'd be awesome if you could save the live, which I'm assuming you're going to do anyways. But yeah,
I'm gonna send it in to you, and yeah, keep reality checking what you've learned tonight. And am I dreaming or am I awake?
get on it, guys. Happy lucid living. See ya.